we are going to go through a penny stock rundown for stocks that, should we see some push from the market back northward over these next several days, these things should work out pretty darn handsomely for us. We'll also talk about that background market bias in context along with what we're seeing in Bitcoin, as that can be part of the signal that we're looking for in terms of risk assets. So without further ado, we're going to jump right into those penny stocks. So we're going to kick things off with Microbot Medical Inc. So MBOT, the ticker symbol is in the background here, MBOT. We're looking at the daily chart. And if I zoom out, what you might see is this orange line coming across here, and then also these previous peaks. We are sitting at very, very critical support resistance level right now. You can see before it was a shelf for us more recently, and then where we at, what happened that brings this to the list. Well, we actually had this big volume catalyzing day, came up and got rejected at the 50 and the 200, and then it is back down. Now we're still up above the 5, the 13, and the 20, so very near term. We're up above the nearest term moving averages. This could, if it can push back up over that 200 and the 50, this is going to be very, very good for us moving forward from here. If we drop down to an hourly chart to see what's going on, you can see the critical lines, the values to get over $2.35 is what we need to exceed in order to activate this thing. We had that catalyzing volume. Now we're softening a little bit. And if this thing falls down below 224, it could keep falling a little bit after that. But that number to write down for MBOT is $2.35. Up above that, we should be able to push for a little bit more, hopefully a lot more, after that massive volume that we got going back on Wednesday. And then we've settled down a little bit since that time in terms of volume. Probably have another push coming on this one if the background market bias is there to support it. VERI, so Veritone Inc. For this one, what's the number to look for? We are looking for a push above $4.50. If we can get it above $4.50, that should help to push this thing back around. I will say that volume right now is, even though it's elevated from what it was back over in here relatively to what we had before, we have very subdued volumes, and we have some not so exciting candles as the price starts to drift upward and the RSI is still in bearish territory. However, if I take down some of these technicals, some of the moving averages that we have on here, there we go. We can pay attention to the most nearest ones. We got to touch on that 200-day, and I talked about that going back to last week, and then look at the movement that we've had since that time. So touching the 200-day, perfect, drifted back up. We need to overtake the 13 EMA. Up above that is that 50 EMA. Like I said, that line that we're looking for is above 450, north of 450 for VERI. NVTS, similar to what we had for VERI. So Navitas Semiconductor, this one, that touch on the 200, and then we got rejected at the 50 so far. Not great if we can't overtake the 5, which is in green, and the 13, which is in yellow. If we can't overtake that 13, watch for a drop down below 823, as this thing could push down lower. We do start to see some support around 751. If we are able to push north, let's go out down to the hourly chart here so we can see a little bit more. You can see we keep on hitting a roof right about $9 a share just north of that. We are getting higher lows off of this, and we need to break that peak at $9.09. That could really help us out. We do have that low point so far, but we're really looking for that time to really break north and hold on to 909 plus on NVTS. Now, mind you, we have seen this massive area of support, and we're starting to curl back around from that one. Once again, the volumes aren't the most convincing that we've seen for this one. That excitement's there, and on the daily chart, you see those high wicks that say that there could still be more selling coming our way. If so, watch for that retouch down here, down at that 200 EMA. ONDS, this one is very intriguing because we had that big old candle back on Monday the 24th, and it pushed us up over that resistance line, but then we just sold right back down through it, down below the 5 and the 13. The RSI at 52 right now. So if we can hold on to that, if we can push back up through that, holding on to 13 is going to be massive for us. If we go down to the hourly chart, we can see a little bit more of the characteristics here of what's happening, and you can start to see that we're starting to get that curled type look on this. So the line in the sand right now is $8 at 808. I heard that mentioned in a bunch of songs. You can see the rejection that we get back over here, which is around that $8 per share. We certainly want to push back up over that if we're going to have that chance to get there, pushing north of 808, especially if we get volume to do that. Massive volume day followed by very tapered volume. Not a lot of conviction in this drifting, if you will, just lack of excitement in the market for ONDS. RZLV, there we go, a slightly higher low here, looking for this thing to curl back around, coming out of its descending wedge pattern. The volumes have not been entirely convincing, but this one, if it can break north of that 200-hour EMA that you see coming down along here, that 200 period, that should be very good for us in seeing this thing turn around. We're starting to see that RSI start to creep back up on an hourly basis. When we go out to a daily chart, you can see that we're down below. We're getting that death cross look between the 50 and the 200. This one, I believe, can return to us significantly when it decides to turn back around. We're just not quite seeing it yet. So this one, keep it on the list. I'm going to actually downgrade this one from green down to yellow. There we go, given its place under the 200-day, because I do believe that we have that value coming back into it. Maybe it pushes down a little bit lower. Maybe we see 238 come out of this and really starts to hit the tops and the bottoms of what we have along here as we start to look. And I think that starts to bring the value back into a stock like Resolve AI PLC. bigbear.ai, and let me take down the technicals because this one's messy. There we go. What do we got to do here? We got to take that 50 EMA. That's all there is to it. We broke down through the 200 EMA twice so far. Got rejected a whole bunch of times. Rejection off the 50, rejection, and then more rejection. Sounds like my high school dating experience. So in any case, we trying to hold on to the 5 and the 13. A push up today is nice. Got to break that 50. Got to crack back up above the mid 6s in order to see this thing move further north. That 50 EMA right now is at $6.35. When we look at an hourly for this one, we can see a little bit more of the characteristics in the near term. You can see that sideways consolidation type movement with not the most explosive volume to go along with it. Slightly elevated than what we saw over here during this part. When we dip down below it, when we are on top of that 200-hour, 645 is that number to watch. If we can get up above 645, we should be in pretty good shape here as we trade along this. If we break out of this near-term channel that we see, we'll probably continue in the direction of the breakout. So if we break down below about $6 per share, I would say dropping south to 6 could lead to a further drop. So we want to be watchful for that. We would break up above 645 to see that further rise. Let's keep on going into SERV, SERV. There we go. Perfect. And this one, not looking so bad. It looks like it could make that near-term turnaround, but it does have to break up above $10.40 in order to make this thing ultimately tradable. So it's nice to see that near-term movement that we see. We're starting to get higher highs and higher lows put in. The volume isn't quite there like we saw for a lot of these. And at a time when the market's pretty indecisive, that can also affect the penny stock. Something to be concerned about in the near term. If we can't overtake the 5 and 13 day for SERV, this thing could sell further on us. You can see that buying pressure happens to come in south of $9 per share. So this long bottom wick that we have here is $8.61 all the way down to about, I can actually tell you that exact price, $8.02. So let's go with just one more here. We'll go with REKR because this one is dancing along its 200-day. If it can overtake the 5 EMA, we want to overtake this previous peak that we have right here, just this minor one, and that should be enough to start turning things around. The RSI is in bearish territory on a daily basis. When we move over to a weekly basis, we're right at 49.66. This thing could push south on us. We want to watch. We're already getting some of those crosses, those bearish crossovers from the most recent rally that it's had over that time. And I think that things are that sell is starting to become a little bit overdone on Rekor Systems. I think there's going to be a lot of adoption. There's some local adoption for their technologies with local law enforcement, with the way it scans vehicles, and just really should do a lot to return values to different communities, especially where law enforcement's involved and stuff like that. With the technology that they have for scanning vehicles, I believe it's a fairly active way and just pops up on the screen. They can see all the different outstanding violations that might happen to be, and they can, I guess if they want to, they can take it for everything. So maybe be nice to your local law enforcement. So just a quick touch on background market bias as we close in on market open. What we want to see from SPY, we want to see a break not only above this near-term peak here, but going back to the peak that we had between Wednesday and Thursday of last week. So breaking back up above that would put in that higher high, and that would be good because we just had a lower low. So something that would break that high would be definitely very welcome. And we also have a little bit of a downtrend across here. You can see that trend line that's happening, a little bit of consolidation here pointing slightly north, but with a fair amount of pivots to break over during that time. The topmost of this happens to be at that 685.88. That's the number to beat. That's that line in the sand for SPY. For the Qs, if we break up over that 619, it looks like so far we can make it up to 625, but we really do want to overtake these previous peaks that we have at that 625. If we can hold on to 625, we got a clear shot to 637. Moving over to IWM, just to keep things short here, once again, not a bad look, but there is selling pressure north of this, much like what we saw with the SPY and the Qs, and we really want to see that conviction come back into the movement. We have to overtake those previous highs and hold on to them as support to see that higher climb. Bitcoin, I think, is going to have a critical role to play in it. On the daily chart, we're down below the 200, the 50, the 13, and the 5. This is a bearish structure, seeing the fastest of the moving average as the lowest and the slowest moving average as the highest. And we want that to be inverted like we saw over here, where it goes 200 on the bottom, then 50, then 13, then 5. That's the bullish structure that we're looking for. And you can see the sort of power that it has when we have those massive crossover moments and the rips that we get from this. That took us from 85,000 all the way up to about 125,000. And then, well, just take a look as we start to get them crossing down over each other, faster, down over, slower, those bearish crossovers. The big thing for Bitcoin is, well, so far we have a higher low, but we still have lower highs. So we need to overtake this number right here that we have. We need to overtake this peak. Closing above it would be preferable. That's at 93,000. So sitting on top of 93,000 could give us a signal that it's time to reinvigorate some of the risk on assets, especially for crypto, where we've seen just such a sell over time, which is very typical of Bitcoin hitting those peaks. I will say that the RSI is starting to climb on a daily basis for Bitcoin. When we drop down to an hourly basis, we're in bullish territory, nearing that overbought. We broke this inverse head and shoulders. We got to watch out for that 89,000 that we have right here for that 200 EMA. Probably hit our heads on it in the near term, but so far, this is a nice promising sign. But you can see the trouble we have as we get into those low 90,000s. We now need to break up above that. If we hit our heads, then we got to find out where that floor is again. Hopefully it's at that 200, and hopefully that allows us to push back up and overtake this peak that we saw back over here right around 93,000. So how are we positioned with the market bias? We're not in bad shape. We do have some hurdles to climb. By the time that you see this, the market will be open and in full swing, and we want to watch those volumes for the penny stocks that I've mentioned. If there's others that you would like to see, you just got to let me know. I'll put out technicals and any transactions that I make over at the Discord. You guys can find the link. I teamed up with Stockmo. That link in the description. The 3-day free trial, I believe, is still active. And then Stockmo Academy, I also have an affiliate link for that for technical analysis, trading using technicals with the bread recipe that I personally use, options, and then a new crypto course as well that just dropped. And there's also a bundle discount that goes, code word doctor. Will save you $400 when you sign up for those courses, so make sure that you take advantage of that as well. Otherwise, guys, I'm going to let you go. Happy trading. I am Dr. Stock, Doctor of Education. Remember, my friends, that learning is earning. We'll see you next video.